There are 168 hours in a week. We go to church for 1 hour. What about the other 167?
Cue this podcast. We're here to bring the church to you the rest of the week. I'm David Vogel, the Director of Communication here at Central Community Church.
I'm Cori Broddle, the Director of Community. We've been to the 1 hour in church. Now welcome to the other 167.
Well, this summer on 167, we're switching it up a little bit. Instead of bringing on different guests and talking about different subjects, we are staying with Pastor Aaron. We've been with him for 4 weeks already. It's the 5th week now in this little series.
Hopefully we still have viewers.
They've been steadily going up as we've gone, I promise. But we're talking about our church's core values, which is something that we don't talk about a lot, but it's been really fun to dig in and really talk about what that means.
And we've done 4 weeks so far, right?
Yep.
So we are on week 5, and today we're talking about reconciliation.
And that is the R in central,
that's
correct?
The R. Yes. So our core values spell out central. If you've missed the first 4, we had community, excellence, nurturing. Can I do this without looking? And truth.
There you go.
Nice job.
Yes. You can still work
and
here.
So we have reconciliation this week, and then we'll also have authenticity and leadership coming up. So let's go with reconciliation. Pastor Aaron, define it.
Yeah, I don't like when you start off define it. That's like
spell
it first.
Exactly. I'm struggling. Could you use that in a sentence, please? No. So as we've talked about each week, each one of our values has kind of a catchphrase, and so we've gone through and talked about that, and I won't do them all again here. We'll watch the previous podcasts, but reconciliation's catchphrase there is restoring relationships through Christ. There's an interesting component to this is that when we restore something, we bring it back to its original condition.
Yeah.
Okay. When you restore a computer or a car or something, it's trying to take that which has gotten away from what it's originally supposed to be, and it's putting it back in its original condition. And so our whole thing is, it doesn't matter where the relationship has been. It doesn't matter what's happened, or it doesn't matter the wreck that the car has been in or anything. But it's taking that and saying, how can we get it back into the original condition that it was designed for? And that original condition, we believe, is a child of God who's been created by their maker. And so how can we reconcile that person and help them see their original identity and not just the broken world that they live in?
So you used the word original. Sorry, David. I'm thinking about in Christ you are made new.
Yeah.
So it could actually be a new relationship.
Yeah, you bet.
Not just a restored, but new.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's so cool about it is it's kind of like you don't have a salvage title on you like a car. It's a brand new title. And that's what's so cool. But the whole thing is when you're made new, you're in a new relationship. The old has gone away and the new has come. And now this relationship has been restored. And there's this reconciliation that's taken place.
Yeah, but I think the interesting component to this is it's not just working on relationship with God, but it's also reconciling people to each other. Because as humans, we're messy. We have conflict. We get in fights.
Hey, speak for yourself. I'm just messing.
Right? You're about to start an argument.
You're exactly right. And the problem is when we go back to previous weeks that we've talked about, it's often because we don't model our lives after Christ like we should. Okay, and so when we act in our own humanity and our own ego and pride and self-centeredness, we don't really model love like we should. And so there's things that need to be reconciled in that, whether it be your family or friends or, you know what, we've got racial reconciliation that we've talked about. In my opinion, the church has done a disservice to a lot of people. And the church needs to reconcile some of those things with some people. I grew up a pastor's kid, and I grew up in a great church, in a great pastor's family. Yeah. But there are a lot of pastor kids out there who don't like the church because of the way that they took advantage of their parents or the way that this or that happened. And there's some reconciliation that needs to go on in the church's life with some of those kids, or that's just one example.
Yeah, sure.
So let's talk about those relationships like David was just talking about, person to person. Where do you even begin? How do you do it? Because this is a tough subject. It is hard to do that, to go to somebody and restore that relationship. So where do you even begin?
For me, it all begins in humility. Okay. If you think you're better than the person that you're reconciling with, it won't go anywhere. It won't go anywhere. And you can try all you want, but you always think that you're one up on them and that they're wrong and you're needing to bring them in. The reality is that, and we'll get to this next week, which I'm super excited about as well when we talk about authenticity. But when we are authentic in that, is realizing that we're humbling ourselves to say, we're broken, we messed up. Yep. You might have some part in it too, but I can't ask for forgiveness for what you've done. I can only ask for forgiveness what I've done. And what I want is a better way of living for both of us. So if I've wronged you or if I've done something, then I need to humble myself and say the words, I'm sorry. We grow up hearing that our parents say, hey, say you're sorry to your brother or sister. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I know. I say that to my son all the time, to my daughter all the time, and they go, I'm sorry. But really, there's not a humbling there. It's just, let's get this over with. Yep. Okay. And again, it goes back to some of what we've talked about the first 4 weeks, is that there has to be some relational value in this and not just transactional happenings.
I think, a side note, the way that my mom brought that humility is when my brother and I were in a fight and we couldn't work it out. She would make us sit on the front porch holding hands, and that knocked us both down a couple of pegs. And by the end, we were fine because we both had the same dose of humility, and we worked it out.
I wish I had your mom. My mom, when my brother and I got into arguments, she made us read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter. Yep. We had to read that and then write a paper on love and why we love our siblings. Love you, Mom. But
my kids aren't going to like you guys because I'm writing these down. This is going to be what we're going to try.
This was horrible for me, but at the same time, it was a humbling thing, as you talked about. We don't like to be humbled. We like to be right. There's this ego and this drivenness to I'm right and he's wrong. You hear that all the time with your kids. I say it all the time in work relationships or relationships out. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, it's never that you were going too fast. It was that they cut you off. The reality is you were going too fast and you know it. No,
I was not.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like we're very rarely in the wrong in our own eyes.
Yep.
So it's taking a step back and going, I could have done something that could have affected the way that this turned out. I didn't do that potentially. Or even my actions, as we've talked about in previous podcasts, people's perception is their reality.
Right.
I haven't given off a good perception that they can view as great reality. And so communication is two ways. It's putting something out there, and then it's a receiving of someone else. If I haven't put out a product or put out love or put out whatever it is in a good way, they're going to receive something that is not what I want. And now I'm responsible just as much as they are for the reconciliation.
And if you don't have love, you're just a clinging symbol.
Yeah.
Is what the verse says.
Yep.
So as hard as that is to approach somebody that you have hurt or done wrong, and you're saying you're sorry, it's free though. Like it takes some pressure off of you. It's freedom. So as hard as it is,
I think authenticity, when you're living unauthentically, there's always that weight because you have to keep the image up. It's a lie. Basically, you have to keep the lie going, and that's exhausting.
Yep. The hard part in reconciliation, especially when we talk about it in groups, it's hard for us when we are the stronger one in the relationship or we're the majority and there's a minority there. It's hard for us. Or if we didn't do it, but our people did. Okay. I'm talking in broad strokes, and you can take that in a racial sense, but also in a church sense. Okay.
Yep.
I didn't do something, but guess what? My church did to that person. That's still a part of me.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't do something, but my family did. That's still a part of who I am. And I'm responsible for doing my part in the reconciliation process. It's not seeing myself as higher than anybody else. It's lowering myself, not to their level, because we're not higher or lower than anybody, but it's lowering myself in my mind to say, I am no greater than anybody else. We are on the same playing field. And there is, this ultimate reconciliation that I want for Christ.
Yeah.
For them and Christ.
and seeing Christ in you. Then we've talked about that in our other podcast, and you've gone on like, what would Jesus do? Yeah. He would approach them, and so he could bring them closer to Christ.
Absolutely. And everything that he did was out of love. So it wasn't a reconciliation in the sense of I need to reconcile things just so I can get my way. Because a lot of times that happens. Right. Okay, let's just get this over with. Let's just say I'm sorry so I can get my way and get on with life and get the toy that I wanted or this or that. No, it's not that. It's really being humble in spirit and taking on the fruit of the Spirit that we're taught about and looking more like Christ and saying this is about a relationship more than it is a transaction.
Yeah. Well, I think that really, I feel like that's a really good ending spot for this conversation. So we'll wrap it up there. We're coming back next week with what, Cori?
Oh, now I got to look at my notes. I wasn't ready for that. Authenticity. You just said that you're really excited. So you guys don't want to miss this next one. We're going to see you next week when we talk about authenticity. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to 167. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening from.
And to keep up with everything at Central Community Church, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to watch us record this podcast live, find us on YouTube.
We think the 167 hours between church services are so important, and we hope you'll share this episode with your friends. Join us next week.